The legislative session is over, but Albuquerque's crime problems are not.
We've released some folks that should never have been released and have already reoffended in Albuquerque while we've all been in the legislative session. And so I find that to be intolerable.
While lawmakers are touting some new public safety bills, for many on the streets, the idea of safety still feels far away.
Do you think that this session was productive when it comes to addressing this retail crime that you've seen firsthand?
No. Absolutely not.
Tonight we are hearing from the man responsible for prosecuting Albuquerque's suspected criminals. New District Attorney Sam Bregman, appointed by the governor. He had his own fight in the roundhouse.
There are certain people that nobody can honestly say should be let out pre-trial based on the nature of their charges and based on their history.
Even if they're later proven innocent?
Even if they're later proven innocent.
And we are asking him, with the legislative session behind us, what will it take to make our streets safer?
Now, KOB Eyewitness News 4.
We are joined now live by District Attorney Sam Bregman, joining us in the studio. Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
We're going to be tackling some issues that are important to a lot of New Mexicans. We want to start with a big one, pretrial detention issue. This is, as you know it very well. To remind our viewers, it's whether to keep suspects in jail pending trial. We just heard from the governor. She mentioned it directly. She called the situation in Albuquerque intolerable. You took up this very issue in the roundhouse, arguing in favor of rebuttable presumption. That's when people are charged with a violent crime would have to prove that they're not a danger to the community to stay out of custody pending a trial. Here's part of an exchange that you had in a committee Senate hearing.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, that's not much comfort for the people that do end up becoming victims of.
No, and it's not much comfort for somebody who didn't commit the crime and who got held.
That exchange was with State Senator Gerald Ortiz-Pino. He represents District 12. That's UNM, Nob Hill, big part of the International District. You could hear the passion in your voice. Curious, did lawmakers miss on this one in the session?
Listen, I enjoyed those debates up there at the session. I personally think that, for example, the Arnold tool, I don't think it's useful whatsoever right now at this point. What I do believe, though, is that someone who's already been convicted, for example, of killing somebody, and then is charged with a new crime of murder, there's no way that that person should be let out pre-trial detention. We have to also always consider the safety of the community. So I'm disappointed, of course, that the rebuttable presumption law that I was supporting did not make it through the legislature. However, I will say at the same time that I've been working day and night, our office has, with the judiciary, with the public defender's office, and I think we're actually beginning to move the needle on some of these pretrial detention motions. Our numbers are going up as far as people being detained, so I'm very happy about that. You said during that hearing it was about 50% success rate. Are we higher than that now? It's very close to 60% now, so we are inching up. This is only 3 months in, right? I think we're narrowing in on what the important cases are, and I think the judiciary recognizes overall, in a sense, that the system may be broken or needs to be fixed at least. Yeah, earlier in the show, I'm not sure if you saw it, Sheriff John Allen mentioned a guy that was in a deputy-involved shooting, said that person was released on their own recognizance. Clearly, it seems like Democrats are on both sides of this issue if the system needs tweaking. Absolutely, it needs tweaking, and we're going to continue working on these very important issues, because pretrial detention is not just about the presumption of innocence, which every person has if they're charged with a crime, until and unless they're found guilty in a court of law. However, the community, if this is common sense, if someone has committed violent crimes in the past, convicted of them, and now charged again, we've got to protect the community. I want to move on because there's a lot of stuff we want to get to, including the stuff that did get done this session. We're going to throw it way back to election night. We talked with Javier Martinez. He's the speaker in the roundhouse. Listen to what he had to say on election night.
Look, we've got to invest in law enforcement. We've got to recruit more police officers, and that's particularly true here in Albuquerque. We've got to keep investing in violence intervention programs, and we have to keep addressing the issue of gun violence.
Now, to his credit, a lot of the things that he listed as priorities did get done. I think about the funding. A lot of funding was accomplished there. Of course, we'll be looking at the effectiveness of those violence intervention programs, but I'm curious about the guns. It seems like it's an issue that the party in power seems unified on. The two major bills that got done this was Benny's Law, which of course, puts some onus on gun owners if minors get their hands on guns, and also the straw purchases, which I don't think has been signed yet. But I'm curious on how you feel about the gun legislation that got passed. Was that going to make a dent in Albuquerque?
First, I went up and testified in favor of Benny's Law. I think that is a very good piece of legislation. I compliment Representative Herndon and the governor on making sure that was a priority. Listen, this isn't about responsible gun owners. This is about irresponsible gun owners, making sure that minors don't have access to guns because of someone's complete negligence. For example, leaving a gun out on a coffee table, and perhaps that person, that child, finding that, going off into a school or hurting themselves or hurting others. This is saying we are going to hold you responsible, gun owner, if a child gets a hold of that gun because of your negligence.
I want to follow up. Do you think it'll be possible to prosecute people on this? Because one of the parts of the law says a reasonable person if they put the gun away. And if somebody argues, oh, I put it on the top shelf, and you have no way of proving where they stored the gun, is it going to be hard to hold people accountable here?
Yes. No to your question, your second question there, but yes, we are going to be able to use this law to prosecute, and I'm glad it passed and the governor signed it.
We'll be watching. We're going to be very interested to see how this
it doesn't have to be used very often, right?
Absolutely, but we pass these laws because we want people to be held accountable and also people to be responsible gun owners.
Agreed.
Moving on, perhaps one of the biggest bills that has been sent to the governor was attacking the issue of retail crime, organized retail crime. First, let's take a quick look at the problem here.
Take this guy, for example, Jonathan Baca, known to TJ Maxx employees as the purse guy. During the first 6 months of 2022, documents allege Baca went into the same store over and over more than 30 times to steal purses, almost $15,000 worth. Each time, he walks out, arms lined with designer bags, without urgency.
Our statute for basic shoplifting is out of date given what we're seeing criminals do in terms of stealing from retail stores. And so the goal at this point is to bring our law up to the standard it needs to be in order to appropriately both deter and hold accountable the people who are committing these crimes as organized gangs, often with weapons.
An update on Baca, by the way. He got out with a few months of unsupervised probation, took a plea deal, knocked off a couple charges during the purse incident. Today, a new criminal summons was filed because Rio Rancho police say he walked out of Target with a grocery cart full of stuff.
Doesn't shock me.
Doesn't shock you. Retail crime bill gets passed as a tool to charge people with a second-degree felony, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it can be as high as a second-degree felony.
Will this be used if it becomes law, and will this help?
Absolutely, and it will help. It was one of the most important pieces of legislation for prosecutors dealing with retail crime. I mean, it is a new beginning when it comes to that. Law enforcement is already working with our office, both the Sheriff's Department, APD, and others. I'm going to tell you right now, when someone goes in and steals $400, that's a misdemeanor. When someone goes the next day and steals another $300 worth, that's a misdemeanor. But when they keep doing this, we shouldn't be charging them with multiple misdemeanors. We should be charging them with felonies. And that's what this law allows us to do. It allows us to aggregate those charges together and hold people accountable. It also allows us to prosecute based on the fact that this may not just be one person doing this, that this is somewhat of an organization that's literally having people go out, steal stuff, and then fencing it, either on the internet or otherwise. This is a powerful tool, and I'm really looking forward to using it.
Hasn't been signed yet, and correct me if I'm wrong. Are you aware of any progress on this one if this one's set to become law?
I anticipate the governor signing it. I know she was very supportive of it.
Okay, and we think it's going to make a difference here with all the stuff we see locked up behind counters and the difficulty
Absolutely. You
people
can't go
have.
into a store anymore without seeing everything locked up. I mean, the most simple things you want to buy is locked up. When you have a family member who doesn't want to go shopping at a particular retail store because she's seen shoplifting or he's seen shoplifting and they don't want to go there because they're concerned about their own safety, unacceptable in every way. This is going to help us. I mean, this is going to help us build cases over at the prosecutor's office to make a difference.
I'm interested in enforcement, because crafting the laws is one thing, enforcing them is another. We know our police department is thin when it comes to doing all of the things that we're asking them to do. We get that part of it. We know your office is thin, that you wanted to hire a lot more prosecutors. Still do. I'm curious how this all comes together.
Sure.
Are we enforcing the laws? Do we need tougher laws? How do you see it?
Well, this law was necessary because of what we're seeing going on out there in the real world. You're exactly right when it comes to now we have to enforce the law. And I think we're really setting the groundwork for that. We've got a tremendous organization of New Mexico Organized Retail Crime Association with lots of different businesses and business owners coming together. And we're going to be doing training at the district attorney's office together with law enforcement and loss prevention at various stores, literally giving the training and say, this is what we need for our case. We need the witness. We need all the identifiers in case that witness is now working somewhere else so we can contact them. We need the video. We need this piece of evidence, and we need this. Check all those boxes, bring us good cases, and we'll prosecute them.
Absolutely. District Attorney Sam Bregman, we really appreciate your time coming in for this live interview. We'll be back right after this.